Good evening, friends. Baruch Hashem. We're going to continue the class we started a couple of weeks ago. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago? I don't even remember. We're learning the Hatzar Yosef, available now. Baruch Hashem. We are learning chapter 6 about the famous story of Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. You want to bring a copy? Do you want to sit next to him so you can share these? You got to see the text. You have to visualize the text. I see. We have somebody prepared in the class. Baruch Hashem. By the way, if you can speak aloud, questions are welcome. Discussion is good. That's why this is why we did this project, to discuss Torah, not just to absorb. You have to discuss also. That's how you become your own Torah personality. Okay, so we are in section 1 of chapter 6. We left off on page 40 on the opinion of the Iyun Yaakov. We're going to see what the Iyun Yaakov was a very famous commentator on Agadot. You can find them in the En Yaakov, which is a famous compilation of all the Agadot, the stories of the Gemara. The Iyun Yaakov is a commentary in there. He explains our Gemara as follows. So maybe I should just do a quick little review of the story. Quickly, I'm just going to read the story again so that we can be reminded. In English, because of Kamtza and Bar Kamtza, Yerushalayim was destroyed. Right? This is the story of Masechet Gittin, page 55b. A certain man whose friend was Kamtza, whose enemy was Bar Kamtza, made a banquet, a party. Right? He said to his servant, "Go bring me Kamtza." That was his friend. Instead, the servant went ahead and brought him Bar Kamtza by mistake. The host of the party, came and he saw Bar Kamtza at the party. He came over to Bar Kamtza and he said, "Let us see, that man is the enemy of this man," talking about each other in third person. "What do you want here? Get up and get out." Then Bar Kamtza, who was the enemy, he said to the host, "Since I have already come, let me be, and I will give you money for everything that I eat and drink, so that you don't have to feel like you spent money on me." He said to him, "No." He said back to him, "I'll give you money for half the party." He said to him, "No." He said to him, "I'll give you money for the entire party. Just don't embarrass me." He said to him, "No." Took him by his hand, says the Gemara, by his hand. That was one of our questions. He picked him up and took him out. And then we went through all our questions. Look at part 1 of the previous video, and over there you'll see exactly what all the questions were. Now the Iyun Yaakov explains as follows. He says the reason our Gemara blames Kamtza, right? One of our questions was, why is Kamtza to blame at all? He didn't do anything. He's just a friend of the host. Why is the first statement then of the Gemara that because of Kamtza and Bar Kamtza, Jerusalem was destroyed? What did Kamtza have to do with it? He didn't do anything. So Iyun Yaakov offers his answer. He says, because to highlight that Kamtza and the host, being confidants, meaning since they're friends, were accustomed to making banquets that would exclude certain people, causing rifts in the community, which culminated in this incident involving Bar Kamtza. Which means this is a normal thing, it says. Him and the host, Kamtza and the host, had a thing where they would make parties and specifically not invited somebody to make them feel bad and to create, division. And this was basically the climax of that event, where they didn't, whatever happened with Bar Kamtza here, as we'll see in the next sections. Rashi did not see fit to explain our Gemara as the Maharsha did, that they were father and son, right? So the question was that Rashi commented, said Kamtza and Bar Kamtza were two non-related Jews. Happened to have similar names. Maharsha said, the Maharsha, no, they were father and son. That's why they have similar names. Bar means son of. Kamtza means just a name. And Bar Kamtza is son of. So they were father and son according to Maharsha. So now we have to analyze, why did Rashi specifically take his route? Why didn't he also agree that they're father and son? Why does he think, why did he choose to explain that they're not related? The Iyun Yaakov is trying to explain that. He says, because if it was indeed so, meaning if they're really father and son, our Gemara should have opened with the statement, because of Kamtza and his son, Yerushalayim was destroyed. Wouldn't it make more sense to say that way? The opening statement was because of Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. Just say because of Kamtza and his son.
Yeah, but when is the answer so straightforward? It's not always.
The Gemara is very, very, very precise. Every word, every ink is calculated. You understand? It's weighed. Before they write it down, they weigh 100 times and think about what they want to write down before it was finally written down. So if it was really his son, and if that was an important detail, they would have wrote it.
Maybe it was irrelevant.
No.
Maybe it was just two actions between two Jews, and that was the story. It doesn't matter if it's his son.
No, this is what I understood. If Kamtza is a name and Bar Kamtza means son of, so there you go. Why do you have to explain it? It's already son of Kamtza.
Okay, it's a good Good point. So the answer is because there's a lot of names or a lot of surnames in the Gemara that started with bar. It's a very common thing. Bar kapara, bar blink. It's a very common thing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that's his father or that's his son. It's a normal thing. It's like today in English, you have a name, then S-O-N at the end, son. Or in Russian, you have a name and O-V at the end. Or in Hebrew, you have Ben blank. It just means the same thing. It's a surname. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're related. So you have to choose, are they related or not? Maharsha says yes, Rashi says no. Rashi says because if they were, the Gemara would have said it straight out. Okay, according to Yun Yaakov. Instead, Rashi deliberately commented that these were the names of two Jews to emphasize that they were just two unrelated Jews who happened to have similar names. Okay. Yeah, note 7 is a little side point where the Petach Hanayim, which is the Yichidah, explains similarly for different reasoning. Okay, we don't have to go into that now. We'll stay in the mainstream here. Next one, Yalkuta Gershoni, another commentator. This is Rabbi Gershon ben Moshe Stern. That's the name of the Chacham who wrote this Sefer. He explains the Gemara as follows. The reason our Gemara blames Kamtza, he gives his own answer why. Since Kamtza was close to the host, he should not have waited for an invitation to come to the banquet. Instead, he should have just come without an invitation. For if he just came, the host would never have had to send his servant to invite him, meaning the servant would never have committed this tragic mix-up. In other words, if Kamtza was such a good friend, he should have just showed up. Who says he needs an invitation? He's probably talking to the host about this party, probably planning it with him. He's asking for advice. Obviously, he's going to show up. But no, because of his honor, he says, no, I expect a formal invitation just like everybody else. And because he expected that formal invitation, that gave the possibility for this mix-up to happen by the servant, and that's what happened. So that was his mistakes. A very, very subtle thing that a little bit of ga'ava, a little ego that he expected a formal invitation just like anyone else. Okay, that's one angle.
Also means pride?
Yeah, it means pride, it means egoism, it means haughtiness.
Is there another word for pride?
In Hebrew? Not really. I mean, pride is a word that depends on the context. It could be a good thing or a bad thing. You know what I mean? There's not really the direct Hebrew translation. There's a good type of pride and a bad type of pride. Okay. The next one is the Ismach Moshe, very famous Hasidic commentator, Rabbi Moshe Teitelbaum. The book that we got this from is a book called Yain HaRokeach that he wrote. He explains the following. There could have been room to speculate what the exact transgression, sin, of the host was regarding his interpersonal relationships. Was it the sin of baseless hatred? Or was it the sin of not fulfilling the Torah commandment, love your fellow as yourself? Meaning, what did the host do wrong? By taking him and throwing him out, right? He threw Bar Kamtza out of the party. Which sin did he transgress? Was it sinat chinam, hating him for no reason? Or was it the nullification of loving your fellow? Right? Says over here, to deter this question, so you don't even have this question, our Gemara underscores that Kamtza was the host's confidant. Kamtza was his friend, meaning that the host did not transgress the commandment to love his fellow, since the commandment is defined by the Sefer HaHikarim, a very important Sefer, as having one friend, one confidant in whom one confides all his secrets and dealings. Which means, according to the Sefer HaHikarim, how do you fulfill the mitzvah of V'ahavta Lecha Kamocha? He says you have to have one friend that you trust everything with. If you did that, you fulfill the Torah commandment, according to that opinion, of loving your fellow like you love yourself.
That's only his opinion.
Yes, but it's a very strong opinion, Sefer HaKarim. Right? So if you look in chapter 11, Sefer HaKarim was written by Rabbi Yosef Albo. It's very, very early on, Rishon. He explains there that the commandment only requires loving one person in this way, like yourself, because a person can only fully dedicate all of his love into one person. That's how he explains it. He says you have a bucket of love, okay? You cannot just amplify it as much as you want and spread it out equally. You take that bucket and you can dedicate it to certain places. It's limited, it says. A person can only love so much. Right? So therefore, if he has one close friend that he trusts with his life, that's already enough expectation out of him. And that's considered, according to him, fulfilling the commandment of loving your fellow like you love yourself.
It's like having a best friend.
Yes, pretty much. Like a very deep, close best friend.
Well, why can't that be about your wife?
Your wife, again, the American thing is your wife has to be your best friend.
No, I'm saying...
Your wife is a different relationship altogether. Your wife is a different facet, a different angle, different approach, completely. Like you cannot compare your best friend, who's of your same sex, to your wife.
You still have to love your wife.
Of course you have to love your wife. You have to live your life, you have to respect your wife, you have to grow with your wife, you have to honor her.
But loving a fellow Jew is a different mitzvah altogether.
Having a friend, I think a friend is a very different relationship than your wife.
100%.
Right? So that's the point here. It's talking about someone. Oh, so you're saying, can you fulfill this commandment according to your Yosef Albo if your wife is that close to you? Perhaps. We have to look inside the book over there to see if there's anything that seems to go against that. But perhaps.
But it says it's to love his fellow. Since when is your wife a fellow?
Fellow, re'ah, means your fellow person, your fellow Jew, your fellow, fellow can be anybody. Fellow doesn't mean male specifically. It could be female fellows. Fellowits.
Women have the same obligation, right?
Yes, women have to have kamocha. Why? Because it's a positive commandment in the mitzvah that is not time bound. Only time bound mitzvah they don't have to do, but non-time bound mitzvah they have to do. Right? This is not time bound. It doesn't say in the Torah, love your friend like you love yourself, only on Wednesdays. No, all the time. Okay? Good.
I heard the real line is love your fellow, not as yourself, as your money or something like that.
Kamocha means like you. There's a lot of different ways to read the pasuk. A lot of different.
I heard you can't put money because people usually will not. Like that wouldn't be at the.
I don't know. I don't know money. You gotta show me that.
Yeah, I gotta show you where I found that.
So bottom line, look what the Yismach Moshe is saying. He's saying since we have our Gemara giving us information that the host had a friend, a very close friend, whose name was Kamtza. So therefore, he was fulfilling V'ahavta Alecha Kamocha, according to Sefer Keim. So therefore, it must be what? Therefore, our Gemara points out that our whole sin, what was the sin? What's the process of elimination? Was indeed baseless hatred. Baseless hatred was the sin that he committed by throwing out Bar Kamtza.
How was it baseless hatred if they had a story behind it?
Oh, that was our question. How do you call it baseless? What is sinat chinam? That's something we have to address. We will, Be'ezrat Hashem, soon. But the Yismach Moshe doesn't tackle that question here.
I don't think baseless is the same baseless as we see.
The word is chinam in Hebrew. Chinam means free.
Yeah.
Free. Like empty, open, free, no obligation. That's what it means. So, again...
Hatred without limits, basically.
No, it doesn't say limitless hatred. It says baseless. It means for no reason. Why do you hate the guy? For what?
You know how they say people don't like the Jews? It's sinat chinam. People don't like the Jews.
They have a reason why they don't like the Jews.
No, but there's a reason.
You're right, so it's not baseless. So our question in this journey, in this courtyard that we're touring right now, in this chapter, is one of those facets is, what is baseless hatred? What do you mean baseless? It doesn't make any sense. Exactly. It's an oxymoron. You hate somebody for a reason.
Exactly.
Unless you're just a cruel, evil person.
Exactly.
So let's see. So now we're going to finish off with the Maharal. Maharal is very deep on our Gemara. Maharal is one of the most important commentators on the Gemara. He really takes everything on a much deeper level. And it's very beautiful to read him. So let's see what he says over here. The Maharal Miprag, he writes, the incident of Kamtza Bar Kamtza is the epitome of division, which is the exact opposite of what the temple in Jerusalem stood for. Every line he writes is very deep. That's why every line I'm going to read, I'm going to let you just digest it and just think it and say, okay, and then move forward. Just translating it and paraphrasing was very difficult for myself in another language, but there's other shit. He says Jerusalem was the... Okay, I'm going to start from one more time from the beginning, because it's a very important word. The incident of Kamtza and Bar Kamtza is the epitome of division, which is the exact opposite of what the temple in Jerusalem stood for. Jerusalem was the epicenter of the nation, of the world really. The city and the temple service served to unify the nation as one. But through the baseless hatred of this incident, Kamtza and Bar Kamtza, Jerusalem was destroyed. The word Kamtza, that's why if you have a copy it's good, it's spelled Kuf Mem Tzadi, Aleph Kamtza. It hints to this. It stems from the word Kemitza, taking a fistful or making a fist. Okay? Kemitza is like this. I have a note number 12 over here. Maharal references Vayikra 2:2, where it speaks about the mincha offering. Right in the temple, the Kohanim had to bring certain different offerings. One of them is called the mincha. It's a meal offering, a flour. Right? They would take a fistful of the flour meal offering and place it on the fire to burn on the altar. This fistful needed to be taken specifically by the portion of the fist from the index finger up into and including the ring finger. Okay, which means he would take it like this. The flour and the oil mixture, he would take it like this and throw it, not like that. Why like this? The pinky and thumb were sticking out. Every finger has a specific name in Torah. And for this reason, the ring finger is called kometz. It's called kometz, same root. So that's why he takes a kemitza, stops by the kometz and throws it in. Good.
What does kamatz mean now?
Kamatz is a vowel. It's a vowel.
Oh, kamatz, yeah.
It's a vowel. It looks like a T.
Any significant?
Oh yeah, there is. I don't know. I don't know if he mentions it here. Doesn't mention here, but we may have to add some footnotes on that because that's shit. Okay, the term is also used in Bava Batra 107a. Gives you a gemara that brings the term to describe a certain monetary case over there, where two brothers were to split an inheritance, and then a third unknown brother showed up. Right, so that's the case over there. Two guys, their father died, they're splitting their inheritance. And the third, now again, the reason is because there's laws on how you split it up. The firstborn gets double portion for the rest. So if you have two brothers, first one gets 66%, second one gets 33%. If you have three brothers, first one gets, what's the math? 50%, the other ones get 25 each. Right? So Shmuel and the Gemara over there ruled that in such a case, the two brothers must mikamitzin. The word the Gemara uses is mikamitzin, same root as kamtza. Which means divide, mekamitz, to divide up the money. A portion from each of their shares for the third brother. Right? So they have to all give up to the third new brother that showed up. It's another proof for the word mekamitzin. It means divide, division, opposite of unity. That's the point I'm trying to show you. Furthermore, Unkelus translates the word chagavim, which means grasshoppers in the Torah, when it talks about kosher grasshoppers. He translates them as kamatzim. Same word, kamtza. Kamatzim. Grasshoppers are also called arbe, right? That was the 8th plague. Locusts, there's different types of locusts in the same class, whose root is the word rav. The root of the word arbe is rav, resh bet in there. And the word rav means a lot of things. One of the things it means is a lot. Arbe, a lot, much. Because they have a factor of multiplicity about them, which means, how do they show up in Egypt? The arbe, huge. They usually travel in huge numbers together. Right, that's why the word rav is inside them. And they're abundant in number. This further points to the concept of division. So he says the concept of having a lot of things is connected to the concept of division. Why? Why? Because multiplicity, having a lot of different things, separate things, can only exist with multiple divided units. Which means each thing is separate from its friend. Each separate from the next. So I try to explain in note 15. The Maharal is explaining the distinction that multiple things mixing together in a homogeneous form describes unity, right? For example, simple example. You have coffee, okay? You have milk, you have sugar. 3 different things, correct? Even more so, the sugar is a bunch of different granules. You could technically each grain of sugar is a separate solid thing, right? So you have a bunch of things there. Once I mix them all together and I make one little coffee with milk sugar mix, it becomes one item. Hazak Baruch. Thank you for the example. It becomes one item, one thing. There's a oneness there, right? There's a hint of God is showing us a little bit about what oneness means. A bunch of things came together, became one.
It's a mixture.
Right, but it's a mixture that became one homogeneous thing. There's no more. You can't say, okay, there's the coffee, there's the sugar, there's the milk. It's one now.
Yes.
Understand what I'm saying? That's oneness. The opposite of that, before they were mixed, is division. You have a bunch of different things. That's the point he's trying to highlight here. Okay? Right, it connects to the concept of multiplicity and oneness of God. Our world has made a bunch of different things, but it all started from the one seed of God's oneness, which, it's Hashem will get to. We have very deep chapters on that as well. You guys, your minds will be blown. That's much later in the book. But let's go back over here in the Maharal. He's trying to show you how the word kamtza, everything about him, all these sources, he's trying to show you that it's connected to division, opposite of oneness. That is why it's written. He brings you a pasuk in Mishle. It says, locusts have no king. Locust type of grasshopper, right? Why? Since a king unifies his people. That's one of his functions. He brings the people together. The king is the leader. He's the nation. But locusts have no king. Because these grasshoppers are so numerous that there is no unifying them. Again, pointing at division. Ants are also called by the term Kamtza. We have sources for that as well. As in the account about the giant Og who tried to throw a mountain in Israel. It says in Masechet Barachot, very famous Agadah, where the Og picked up a mountain and tried to throw it on top of Israel and killed them. But God saved us by having ants come out and from the mountain and attack him. So the word for ants there, it says, so God brought Kamtza. Kamtza means ants as well, to stop him, to deter him. Masechet Barachot speaks about that, if you want to look at that. Note on the bottom. About ants, it is also stated they have no king, no unifier. As it says, go to the ant, you sluggard. What's a sluggard, Mike?
Sluggard?
Sluggard, fancy word. This is a pasuk in Mishle as well. Sluggard means a slowpoke. It's like a slug. Slow person. Lazy person. That's a sluggard, okay? Go to the ant, you sluggard. Meaning, when you're lazy, you look at the ant.
Wait, slugger? Or
Sluggard. Sluggard. Get a copy, my friend. Yes, bring a copy next time. Sluggard, huh? It's just a word that means lazy.
We said he mentioned to go to look at the ant.
Yeah.
Why looking at the ant?
So that's a good question. Mishle says if you're lazy, look at the ant. Why? Because the ant never stops working. It's non-stop around the clock working, and not only that, it picks up many more times its own weight.
10 times its weight.
Something that's unbelievable, right? And you think, oh, if the ant can do that, but you can't wake up on time to come to nets? Well, this guy knows what I'm talking about. And that's why now it's very difficult. But if the ant can do it, Kal v'chomer, human being can do it.
You know the problem with that statement? They have no free will.
Ants have no free will. Okay, fine. But the point is that God created things in the world to show you what you could become. It's a Kal v'chomer. The ant has no free will and he does it anyway. If he had free will, he would sit down and relax. You have free will, so you should be able to do it. The ant doesn't know what's good about it. He's just trying to survive. But you understand there's a reward. Ant doesn't understand there's a reward. The ant understands life or death. Instinct. So,
If you turn off a person's free will,
Okay.
and he just lives off instinct, he's going to do the same exact thing.
What?
He's going to follow and...
he's going to pick up 10 times his weight?
That
No,
was originally
we have
what
to
was
do what...
He's going to work?
Yes.
A person's going to work?
It's instinct. Survival of the fittest.
No.
Yes.
Working is not instinct. Working is your desire to make money that's pushing you.
To survive.
No, not to
That's
survive.
why we
If you
work.
wanted to survive, all you need is a little hut, okay? I don't know,
Bread, salt.
pretzels and water.
We have free
If you wanted to
will.
survive, you don't want to survive. We want to live.
I said if you remove free will, that's the difference. We have too much free will now.
I don't understand what you're saying.
He's saying Hitler's not here, so we're telling.
No.
No.
What I'm trying to say is, if we were just based on animalistic instincts,
Yes.
we would be living like that also. We would just be living to survive.
Right, which means
Because-
we will not be working as hard.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so we're saying the same thing. You'll
I
not be
know.
working as hard.
I
Yes.
know, but I'm saying the
We-
fact that we have free will makes us different.
Okay. Does
It
it?
makes us better than them.
It makes us have higher expectations than them. Ants don't have free will, but nevertheless they work hard. So we that have free will and we understand the reward that working hard brings, shouldn't we do it more? Shouldn't we all the more?
We do work hard.
Okay, I'm not talking about you. You're a big tzaddik. I'm talking about lazy people. I'm talking about sluggards. Yes. Okay, that's the point. So it says over here, go to the ant, you sluggard, though there is no ruler, no officer, no guard over it. Again, the Mishle is saying the ants have no ruler. What that means is they have no unifier. They come in a lot of numbers, right? Ant holes. They live with a bunch of different high population of them.
And farms.
Yeah, ant farms, all these things, ant holes. They're never by themselves. Very rare you're going to find one ant. It's usually posse. Okay, thus the point of all this is Kamtza and Bar Kamtza, because they both have the name Kamtza in them. And we just proved that this word Kamtza is deeply entrenched in concepts of division, separating.
So they were both dividers?
Yes, because the Gemara blames them both. Remember, the first line of our Gemara was Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. They're both blamed.
The reason for the destruction.
Yes. On account of them, the Yerushalayim was destroyed. A little more in the Maharal. We have time, Baruch Hashem. He says, regarding why the Gemara blames Kamtza as well for the destruction, now he's going to give his answer why he thinks Kamtza is to blame. The answer is that in a generation of haters, which is their generation, confidants, friends, often band together to hate against each other. It's not everybody's by themselves. You have groups, you have cliques. This guy versus this guy and that guy, and this group versus that group, right? So that's what he says over here. So when our Gemara says his confidant was Kamtza, when our Gemara tells us that the host of the party, his friend was Kamtza, it means that the love between the host and Kamtza was itself a tool of division. Their friendship itself contributed to division.
So how is that part of loving your fellow as you love yourself?
I know. That's the Yismach Moshe. Remember, it's different opinions here. That was the Yismach Moshe. This is the Maharal. He didn't read the Yismach Moshe. So Moshe came after the Maharal. So different, right? So this is his opinion. Our Gemara calls the confidant Kamtza, a word meaning division, as we explained, because he only linked up with the host to collaborate in their hatred of another person, Bar Kamtza. So Maharal is purporting, another fancy word, which means he's asserting that the friendship of the host and Kamtza was based on their mutual hatred of Bar Kamtza. That happens, right? What's the saying in English? The enemy of
The enemy of my enemy is
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's the point, right? That's what brings us together. If we both hate a common cause, we'll be friends. Exactly. Their love was the means for decisive end, divisive end, to hate Bar Kamtza. Thus, our Gemara calls the person involved in the conflict directly Bar Kamtza, and it calls the one who attached himself to one of the sides just to contribute to the divisiveness simply Kamtza. Right? To explain, note number 1920 explain. So in this vein, Bar Kamtza, the words Bar Kamtza in Hebrew, in Aramaic, can be interpreted as the subject of the division. Right? So in Hebrew, whenever you want to say that someone is eligible for something, right? Like simple term, bar mitzvah. What does bar mitzvah mean? Bar mitzvah means now this boy is eligible, not only son of, but it means he's eligible to the mitzvot, to fulfill the mitzvot. He's of that age, he's of that character and of that status.
If you reach that point. Exactly.
Right. So the same thing here. Bar Kamtza, he's eligible of Kamtza. He's the eligible to be the divider. He's the divider.
So divider and eligible divider.
Subject of the division, right? And then Kamtza is just simply division because he just attached himself with he's the friend. The real subject, the reason why Kamtza attached was the subject. The subject was Bar Kamtza. Bar means subject of, right? Eligible. That's the point. The first and second temples were destroyed for different reasons, and each era was defined by a certain strength. The first temple era's strength was the presence of the Shekhinah. Shekhinah was there in the first Bet HaMikdash, much more so than the second. While its weaknesses, right, the first temple era, the weaknesses was its lack of unity, since it stood at a time when the Jewish people were divided into two kingdoms, right? There was a northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judea. Okay? The northern, right over here. The Yetzer Hara, we know what that is, right? It entices the areas of strength. Look in number 22. Defeating an enemy in the area where the enemy is strongest is the most exceptional victory. So, for example, if I know you have a really good skill at something, what are you good at, Mike?
Handball.
What are you good at? You good at handball? For example, take
And you beat him
for
in
example.
handball. That's like
If you're the top guy on the block and everyone's losing to you, all of a sudden this guy comes out of nowhere from across the town, and he completely destroys you.
it's the ultimate defeat.
Tell me how much that hurts, right? So the Yetzer Hara, that's how he tries to get you. You understand? He has so many different avenues to get you. You could think in your mind, you know what? My tefillah is good. When I pray, I have kavanah. You know, I don't let anything go in my mind. I think whatever. Or my Shabbat is so good. I don't do it. My level of kashrut is so good. Whatever it is, whatever you think you're really good at, that's where he's going to sneak up on you, and he's going to make you trip and fall because you didn't investigate good enough, or you didn't check, or you didn't pay attention, you slipped, and he's going to make you feel so bad about it. Because the mountain you built just got crumbled. Right?
Are you ever allowed to feel good about mitzvot that you do?
You have to feel good about the fact that you are a son of God, and that you have a huge responsibility in your soldiers, and you have huge power to create great things.
You know what I'm saying? Am I always supposed to feel like I'm not enough with kavanot? I'm not.
You know, you should feel like I'm okay where I am, but I always have room for improvement. I'm good. You should never think I'm terrible, because then you're just going to give up. Think I'm good, think I'm better than I was yesterday, and I know I can get better. Oh, that's the ideal middle. Exactly, the ideal middle. Not too much this way, not too much that way. Okay? So therefore, we said now in the first temple era, their strength was what? The Shekhinah was there. Therefore, the downfall of the first temple was due to the 3 cardinal sins, right? Which was, illicit relations, murder, and avodah zarah, idol worshiping. And when you do those sins, it fosters an impurity, creates impurity amongst the people who do it. And that drives away the Shekhinah. By definition, the Shekhinah cannot be next to impurity. It needs to be in an area of purity. This impurity pushes it away. So their strength was that they had Shekhinah. Yetzirah got them there. How? He made them do the sins. The sins bring impurity. Impurity pushes away Shekhinah. Took away their strength. Meanwhile, the second temple's era, which is about 500 years later, their strength was its unity at first. They were very unified. I look at 24.
Because in order to rebuild it, they had to be unified.
What that means is the Jewish people, exactly, but also the Jewish people were united under one kingdom of Judea. It was way after it was just one Jewish kingdom. So that was the unity of it. And the Yetzirah brought down its downfall through disunity. It attacked that strength again and created disunity, as our Gemara tells. And our story in our Gemara about Kamtza is the ultimate example of that disunity spreading.
I like his example.
His explanation. He's very deep, right? Maharal's amazing
Makes
stuff.
sense.
Amazing stuff. Okay, with that said, we have about 17 minutes to start the main entree of this first section, which is the Hatzar Yosef, the courtyard of Yosef, as you say. And we give you our humble opinions and explanations of how we can approach the Gemara, and I think hopefully you'll be satisfied with some of the things we say here. I don't know if we'll get through all of it, but let's get started. I think we may be able to do it. The first explanation of the Binya Huyada, so we have to just remind ourselves. And I say it what it is here. We did this explanation last week. He explained that Kamtza was surely present at the party. The Binya Huyada said that Kamtza was there, he had to be there. And since he was there, he had the ability to protest the embarrassment conducted by the host. Is difficult, which means this approach is difficult. We disagree with it, humbly. Because if he was really there, why would the host need to command the servant to go invite Kamtza if he would have come on his own anyway? Right? Our Gemara said that the host told the servant, go invite Kamtza. But if you're going to assume he's there, they're so close, so why did he tell him to invite him? That's redundant. And even if one would say that the servant brought both Kamtza and Bar Kamtza, if you want to force that explanation, say he brought both of them, this would be too big of a detail for our Gemara to omit, which means, because our Gemara just says he brought Bar Kamtza. It doesn't say he brought both of them. Instead, our Gemara clearly implies that only Bar Kamtza was brought to the party, and Kamtza was not present. So we go there on the approach. We don't have any indication to assume that Kamtza was there. Okay, there is an approach to our Gemara that we can take to tie up all the loose ends surrounding the peculiar details of the story thus far. Enemies are not created out of thin air, right? One of our questions was, why is the host and Bar Kamtza, why are they enemies? What happened? It seems that there is a pertinent backstory, okay, involving these three people that set the stage for the events of our Gemara. Of course, we cannot propose just any backstory. It must be supported by the details that our Gemara provides. The Maharal took great interest in explaining the significance of the word Kamtza. He shows all the examples. And surely this word plays a crucial role in this story. In Torah, names attributed to a person's name, always reveal a certain essence or facet of that person's role or character, right? And here is no exception. One of the meanings of the word Kamtza is fistful, as the Maharal pointed out. Fist. Yeah, Kamtzan also, we will see what it means, Kamtzan. Making a fist is an action associated with stinginess. What's a Kamtzan? A stingy person. Holding back from giving, which is the exact opposite of what the Torah commands. And we'll bring you a pasuk in Devarim 15, 7 and 8. We're going to read to you in English. It says, if there will be a needy person, becha, among you, from one of your brothers, in one of your gates, in your land that Hashem your God gives you, do not fortify your heart, and lo tikpots, do not shut your hand from your needy brother. Lo tikpots. Tikpots literally means jump. Don't jump your hand away. Rather, patoach tiftach. You shall surely open. Double language. Right? Poteach, double language of opening. You shall surely open. Patoach tiftach. Yes. Your hand for him, and you shall surely lend him enough for his lacking, whatever is lacking to him. Simply put, Torah says, don't be stingy, give tzedakah. Okay? But there's a lot of details here.
Oh, yeah. It's good enough for his rent, for his food, for his car. Everything.
Yes, for his lacking, yes. Absolutely. But now we're going to focus on the other parts. Thus, but the Torah says you have to give, and don't be stingy. Thus, it makes sense that the word kamtzan means stingy person. Again, connected to kamtza. And it seems this particular meaning of the word kamtza is the one that our Gemara stands on, stinginess. We'll explain how. The backstory may have been as follows. So we're going to propose a possible connection of these three individuals here. Okay? You read this already, you said. Okay. At some point prior to the events of our Gemara, Bar Kamtza, the names are similar, so try to follow. Bar Kamtza was in a state of financial need. He needed money. And so he requested help from his acquaintance, at the time they were friends, Kamtza, who was financially well off at the time. Bar Kamtza comes to Kamtza for money. Kamtza, displaying his stinginess, refused. No. This created tensions between the two, Bar Kamtza and Kamtza. Sometime later, Kamtza lost his wealth, and Bar Kamtza ascended the financial ladder. Their roles reversed, as is the way of the world. Happens all the time, right? We understand this. This is a normal thing, right? So we're saying basically Bar Kamtza became rich, and Kamtza went down. Note 3, we have a side note. This also explains why Bar Kamtza was so seamlessly willing to pay great amounts of money in our Gemara to avoid the embarrassment of being kicked out of the party. Remember, he said, I'll pay for the whole party. You know how expensive that party was. It's a huge party. A lot of people were there, as we'll see. A lot of important guests were there. It's a lot of money to pay for.
But he wasn't going to Kamtza's party.
He went to the host party, the host.
But what does host have to do with Kamtza?
We're getting there. So where does the host come into the story? Then the unnamed host, who had close ties with Kamtza, as our Gemara takes care to underscore that they were friends, the host now came to Bar Kamtza for financial help, because Bar Kamtza became rich. So the host now comes to Bar Kamtza. Now Bar Kamtza remembered how Kamtza, the confidant of the host, this guy's friend, refused him previously. And as a result, he too refused the host. Which means Bar Kamtza refused to give money to the host because the host was friends with Kamtza. And Kamtza in the past refused to help him. Do you understand?
Bar Kamtza was on his fish.
We didn't get there yet. That's the next sections. Next section 2 and 3. Okay, so now when we say follow this. Bar Kamtza made a grave error here. The error pinned for the reason of the destruction of the temple, the error of hatred by association. This is what is meant by sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Since the term itself seems paradoxical, how can such a strong emotion as hatred come about with no cause? Completely baseless.
But there is a cause. His friend doesn't like him, so I don't like it because my friend doesn't like him.
But that's not a cause. We're talking about him. What did he ever do to you?
He hurt my friend.
No. That's called hatred by association. That's baseless.
That's not baseless.
That is baseless.
No, I consider that hatred by association. I don't consider that because you're associating it to something.
We're associated to, but no. To hate somebody.
Let me tell you.
You have to hate that thing. There has to be a justifiable reason. Do you understand? Justifiable reason. That's the point. To hate somebody, if they did something wrong to you, that's justifiable that you hate them back.
You're my friend. If a burglar beats you up like crazy, I'm going to hate him. It's not baseless.
That's not the same. That's not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same. If somebody beats up your friend, you hate him because that person did a sin by beating somebody up.
But he did nothing to me.
That's different. It's different. You're mixing it up. Here, if he comes up to you to ask you for help, hold on, you're confusing. We're saying like this. It's very simple. We're saying like this. We're saying hatred by association means that the person himself did nothing wrong to you and you hate him.
Yes, because your friend hates him. Yes, that's
not that your friend hates him. Again, the point is like this.
That's what we just said.
Let me read it again. Since the term itself becomes, look, show them, you lost my place. Bar Kamtza, remember how Kamtza, the Kamtza, refused to him previously. As a result, he refused the host. This person did nothing wrong to you, and now you're refusing him because his friend did something wrong to you. That's not justifiable.
That's not justifiable.
It's not justifiable. How do you see it?
Well, what does his friend have anything to do with him? He asked him for something. He didn't ask his friend.
He heard.
So he has full right to be mad at the friend, but he doesn't have any right to be. He's full right to be the person to Kamtza, but he doesn't have any right to be mad at the host because he didn't even ask the host for help. What does the host have to do with that?
Beseder. I want to go a little further. You can disagree. You don't have to agree with what I say, but by all means, let's go further. Bottom line, we're proposing the fact that hating someone by association is tantamount to baseless hatred because it's unjustified. Surely there must be something that triggers such a powerful emotion, right? But understanding this backstory clarifies the term greatly. These three characters are the prototype of baseless hatred. Bar Kamtza hated the host and refused to help him only because he associated the host with his good friend Kamtza, but looking at it from the perspective of Bar Kamtza's own personal relationship with the host, it was baseless. Right? That's the point. Number 5, neither can it be considered an act of revenge since it was not the host who originally denied him the financial help. It was his friend Kamtza. When one is blessed with wealth, he must know where his blessing originated from, since the one, meaning God, who granted it can just as easily take it away. As it says, Hashem gave, Hashem took, let the name Hashem be blessed forever. Right? This is a very famous pasuk in Iyov. Hashem natan, Hashem lakach, Hishem Hashem uvorach. That was the translation. Therefore, as the verses brought above describe, one must not fortify his heart and hold back from giving, since the giver may one day become the one in need of receiving. The roles can reverse very easy. That is the depth behind the seemingly unusual wordage in the pasuk that we said, where it says, if there will be a needy person, becha, amongst you. The simple meaning is amongst you. But the word becha literally means in you, inside you, which means the need could be in you one day. That's the point. Whereas the more appropriate term for amongst you is becha. That's a more accurate word, but the pasuk doesn't use that word. Use the word becha. Becha means in you, which means amongst you, but also in you. You could be this guy. It could be you who needs to be to receive the help. The Torah uses the word in you to emphasize the importance of giving, since that same need that you are filling may now one day be in you. This may also be one of the deeper meanings of the double language in the pasuk, in the following verse, because it says, Ki patoach tiftach. Rather, you shall surely open, which we can explain to, double language of opening, which we can explain to mean, we can render, if you open your hand, another shall open for you when you need it. That's why double opening, right? 2 words open. Patoach tiftach. Note 7 is a side point. Thus, everything falls into place. When our Gemara says, because of Kamtza or Bar Kamtza, Yerushalayim was destroyed, it puts the blame on both of them equally. Kamtza, for initiating the vicious cycle with his stinginess, he started everything. Yes, because he said no to Bar Kamtza. And that's where the whole cycle came out. And Bar Kamtza was blamed for his baseless hatred towards the host. His hatred by association. He didn't help the host because the Kamtza didn't help me. Who's Kamtza? This is somebody else, B'chlal. It's me now asking you for help.
But this is an interpretation. This is like the legit story.
This is how we are proposing to explain the Gemara. Like I said, you may disagree. This is not perfect, but I think it's pretty strong. This reveals further insight into their names. Kamtza was called so because of his stinginess, since Kamtzan means stingy, as we explained. He started the whole cycle by being stingy. The word bar literally means son of, but it can also mean as a result of. So the word bar has a few meanings. Son of, the subject of, eligible, also as a result of something. Just as the son is the result of his father, right? That's why it's called bar. He's a result. You're the result of your father. Therefore, Bar Kamtza literally means the one who's a result of Kamtza. He's the ping pong. Kamtza started, Bar Kamtza ping pong back. Showing how Bar Kamtza's sin was the retaliation of Kamtza's. Perhaps our Gemara omits the host's name. That was another question we had. Why is the host never named? Perhaps because he was merely the middleman between the other two. Right? In the original backstory, he didn't really do anything wrong. He was the middleman between Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. In this story, he embarrasses Bar Kamtza, so he's definitely liable, right? Even though the whole sin too, by publicly defaming Bar Kamtza in our story, still his hatred was not baseless. It was not sinat chinam. He had a reason to hate and throw out Bar Kamtza because Bar Kamtza denied him. He had a, right? So that wasn't necessarily sinat chinam, based on how we're explaining it. It was not baseless. Therefore, it cannot be what the Gemara in Yoman 9b is referring to. Over there it says baseless hatred. Number 8, this is not to say the host was justified in his actions. Rather, the point is that the sin of baseless hatred cannot be attributed to him, but rather to Bar Kamtza, upon whom our Gemara puts the blame, as we explained. Right? The Gemara doesn't say because of Bar Kamtza, and the host. It says Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. Why? Because they're the ones that had the baseless hatred that the Gemara in Yoman 9b was talking about, we're saying. That was the baseless hatred based on how we explained it. Good. 3 more minutes, and we'll do one more paragraph, and then next week we're going to explain a very deep thing about the yad, the hand. One more paragraph, B'ezrat Hashem. After these events, begin the events of our Gemara. The host was gravely insulted for being categorized by association, and thereby united with Kamtza in hatred against Bar Kamtza, as the Maharal wrote. The host's peculiar language with Bar Kamtza also begins to become clear. You see, we had a question. When the host saw Bar Kamtza in the party, he came over to him and said, let us see, this man hates that man. What are you doing here? He went from third person to second person, mid-sentence. What do you mean this man hates that man? See, I hate you. What this man say that? What is it? Right? So why? But based on how we explained it, all makes sense. Why? When he says, let us see, this man is an enemy of this man, he meant us. That man, which means Kamtza he was talking about, is an enemy of this man, meaning Bar Kamtza, you. In other words, it was him, that other man, Kamtza, who originally denied you help when you needed it, not me. When I came to you for help, it was this man and that man. It was you and him. I was not part of it. You see how it fits? He continues and says, mid-sentence, what do you want here? Changing to second person, accenting the personal issues that developed secondarily between them, the host and Bar Kamtza, as a result of the original issue between Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. Now whatever he says makes perfect sense. This also explains why Bar Kamtza offered to appease the host by means of paying for the expenses of the party, since it was money and greed that started it all. He said, fine, you wanted help, money? I'll give you money right now. I'll make this party free for you.
That's why you mentioned the
Yeah,
money.
of course, it all started with money. It always starts with money. Right? In other words, his last ditch effort was, if it's the money which I denied you in the past that you're upset about, then allow me to make it up to you and pay for the expenses of the entire banquet. Just please do not embarrass me so. But the host's mercy was mislaid. Mislaid, fancy word for nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. Okay. We have to finish it. We have to finish it. We have to finish it. Okay. It says over here. They usually go a little bit over. Last paragraph here, we're going to go a little bit deep now. Our last question was, our Gemara made a point to say he took him out by hand.
Yeah.
He took him out by his hand. Why? Who cares how he took him out? Who cares if he took him out by his foot, elbow, headbutt? Why the hand?
Because that's the exact.
Let's see. Because, yes, that's one reason. Not to address the point that can too easily slip under the radar, our Gemara's insistence on mentioning his hand. There is a principle in the deeper wisdom that yad, the word hand, meaning hand, when unspecified, refers to the left hand. It means the left hand usually. This is another word, since there is another word specifically referring to the right hand, which is yamin. Yamin means right hand. Okay? The left and right hands are major themes throughout Torah on all levels, as we know. The right coincides with chesed, the attribute of limitless giving, and the left coincides with the exact opposite, holding back and placement of limitations. That's what it means. For this reason, the left is associated with exacting judgment, din, right? There is no favoritism, where no favoritism is entertained, and punishment is meted out exactly according to what is deserved. That's what din means. You get exactly what you deserve. Again, we're going to go very, very deep into these concepts in later chapters. It seems our Gemara encloses a double meaning with its usage of the term his hand. Firstly, it's referring to Bar Kamtza's hand, by which the host grabbed him, his left hand. He grabbed his left hand, indicating Bar Kamtza's debauchery, which means sin, to him. Since it was by the power of his left hand that Bar Kamtza held back from giving to the host in his time of need, like you said. Left means holding back from giving, and that's where everything started. Secondly, it's referring to the host's left hand, which he used to forcibly defame and remove Bar Kamtza, which is surely an act of strict judgment. The opposite of chesed, it was a left-sided act. In fact, considering the backstory that we have provided, a left-sided act of strict judgment was performed 3 times. Once by Kamtza, who first held back from giving to Bar Kamtza. That's where it all started. Then by Bar Kamtza, who held back from giving to the host. And thirdly, the host's forceful removal of Bar Kamtza as the icing on the cake. A fundamental principle of deeper wisdom is that the attributes that are activated in the lower worlds create an equal reaction by activating those same attributes in the upper realms, which in turn pour that influence back downward to the lower worlds in a boomerang-like fashion. Which means, put simply, you reap what you sow. You get what you give. Whatever you put out into the world, that's what comes back to you. Right? Generally, an event that is repeated thrice, which means 3 times, is considered a halachic certainty, chazakah. It has established itself as the default. The tripling of the left-sided activation that we just explained by these 3 men solidified the decree that poured left-sided influence into the world in the form of destruction of Yerushalayim and its holy temple.
Wow, that's beautiful.
A 3-ply cord will not hastily disconnect. That's the pasuk in Mishlei, which means chuta meshulash. When you triple something 3 times, it's not a disconnect. That's it, it's solid. And that's why they caused the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Baruch Adonai le'olam v'ma'ameh. Next week,